Dolphins fan. 1, 2, 3, let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we're back here for another one. Yes, your eyes do not deceive you. I no longer look like a Viking. Neal, how are you doing? Well, I know you're fantastic after that Adley walk-off, making up. At least one of us is not feeling the pain of our hockey team not being in the playoffs right now, blanketed by the success of another.
You know what I mean? My team's out too, but no, yeah, I was at the game today. Took my son. He's on spring break. Bottom of the ninth, first pitch, Adley Rutschman walk-off homer. And for those who don't know, the Orioles are in my blood too, and that was just awesome to see, man. Adley's such fun to watch, but I had to run back here, make sure we got our weekly dose of Miami Dolphins because, as usual, there's a lot of stuff stirring around Miami, Florida, and the Dolphins as usual. So
a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we're officially 2 weeks away from the draft. Officially,
yes,
right?
Sir.
Wow.
And guys, I'm gonna be live for night 1 and night 2. We're gonna have a panel both nights. Night 2 is gonna be the one to work because we got 2 picks. So be sure. And speaking of, on Sunday I'll be dropping my linebacker big board. So far we've done offensive tackle, we've done running back, and what else did we do? We've done another one. Bro, I'm so immersed right now in football. We've done offensive tackle, running back. And how am I drawing a blank right now?
We're in this part of the season where we're so saturated with draft stuff, man.
It's unbelievable.
I don't know about you, but I'm a little contented out in terms of I don't read mock drafts anymore because it all just blends.
Bro,
you know what I mean? People
do not realize the break from all 22 I take at the end of April, bro. I am all 22. Out right. Oh, tight end. I did my tight end big board.
Yeah,
I just dropped my tight end big board.
Yeah.
What am I? That's how, bro. I'm everything. It's like when you have a baby, and it's every day is just a blur because they all go into the next day. You know what I mean? For the first year of that baby's life.
Right now, man.
Basically, that's what it is right now in draft season, right? Because you're just while I'm still, putting together and putting the finishing touches on this weekend's linebacker stuff. And while I was still doing tight end, what was I doing? Diving heavily into defensive tackle because unlike the other positions like offensive tackle and running back, I hadn't done heavy homework leading up to draft season because, I didn't view it as a pressing need yet, and now it's totally been flipped over. And I've gone from watching 5 guys to now I've watched, I think I've watched my 16th guy yesterday, something like that. So
that's why
I'm just trying to catch up.
I urge people not to fall in love too much with one player or one position, because I can tell you right now, there is, Yeah, and I am in the dark again. I just told Reason before about I got a light coming, so this is get better. Last week was good. I was in the frame shop and I had lights. I will get this fixed.
What was that movie with Alec Baldwin? Where he's the shadow? What was that? Remember where he had the hat and he had the double pistols? You don't remember that? Someone in the comments will. Anyways, continue on because it's guys. I think it's like Shadow Man.
The reality is, I think we would agree, Reason, that we want a tight end pretty early, but the likelihood is that the Dolphins might not do that, right? Like we've heard the talk about defensive tackle, right? Reason, you said that on here 3 weeks ago. I think it's one of those things that it's really, really important. It's really important to pay attention to people's big boards and see where they have people drafted, because I think what we'll see is that the Dolphins might throw us a curveball on the draft day. I think there's a strong possibility the Dolphins could draft a position that we don't think we need. Maybe like we saw last year with Eric Uzukanma, right? Like we didn't think we were going receiver after adding Tyreek Hill and Cedric Wilson, yet we still did. So I think that we will, they are becoming more of a best player available drafting team than a draft for need team. So we saw Barry Jackson say defensive tackle, and most people were like, well, why the hell would we need a defensive tackle? Well, Raekwon Davis.
Well, I was saying it about a week and a half before Barry. So.
Yeah, you were. But, it's Zach Seiler, free agent. Raekwon Davis, free agent. Christian Wilkins, and we're going to talk about that later. There's big money at the table. And, a defensive tackle is very, very important to Vic Fangio's defense. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. But, we're 2 weeks away. I mean, at this time, next week, obviously the Dolphins will have a pick. Well, we'll probably be through the first 5 picks.
See, you know what I'm excited about? I want to get that linebacker out this week, and then I'm finishing next week. I'm having everyone voting. I actually haven't even seen. I just dove into defensive tackle because I'm assuming everyone's going to – I've given my patrons and my channel members the access to vote for what the final big board is. I'm assuming they're picking defensive tackle, and plus I needed to shore up on defensive tackle just to be ready for the draft anyways, even if they don't pick it. So I'm assuming. I'm just trying to get that 5th board out because I know – I'm telling you, this is what we're going to do. First of all, we're gonna have to move up fin too deep the week of the draft, right?
Right. Probably a Wednesday nighter. Probably a Wednesday night.
Wednesday's finish line.
Okay,
maybe me, Richmond, and
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, hopefully you can do Tuesday because I want to do each of us, and I'll get you get it to me, and I'll do mine, and I'll get some fancy images made up of them, hand by hand, 3-round mocks, so we can at least give everyone 2 picks, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's becoming clear, actually, Reason, and it's for me, if I had to make a pick today, who I think the Dolphins would pick, I want Sam Laporta. That's who I want.
Yeah.
I think Mazi Smith is going to be the pick. I think that's a guy.
I think he's going to be gone.
You do? If he's there, I think he's the guy the Dolphins are going to take.
I think if he didn't have the off-field issues, Mazi Smith would be.
Oh yeah,
would be he's a first-round talent, Mazi Smith, bro.
Right.
I think he's going to be gone, dude. Like, I don't think he's going to be there by 51.
Yeah.
Someone's going to take him in the 30s or 40s, or they're going to know. You want me to? They're going to know we're eyeing, and someone's going to. It happens every year. They'll leapfrog us. But He's a wrecker. He's a wrecker. That guy. I love him. I think people are getting way too comfortable with thinking all these names are going to be that. I've been seeing some people are putting ridiculous names they think are going to be there at 51 that I'm just shaking my head at. Because I see even now people are starting to convince themselves out of Darnell Washington.
Nah, he's not going to be there.
No, but people are starting to convince themselves out of him as, he's not that very good of a prospect. And here's my thing. What's with people just saying, okay, well, if I don't think you're a good blocker, you're Mike Gesicki, because too many people are giving Sam Laporta. I got to call this out. Too many people are calling Sam. First of all, too many people are selling short Sam Laporta's blocking ability. Okay. Is he George Kittle right now? No, but that man has the strength as seen by his 24 bench reps. I believe it was 24 bench reps. Plus when you watch him, he's willing. His is all technique. Sam Laporta. This is what I try to tell people when you watch tight end. When you watch tight end, you talk about blocking. There's 2 type of guys you're looking for, whether positive or negative. This is what you're looking for. Agree? Tell me if I'm wrong, Neal. You're looking for, and one of these guys should scare you. The other one shouldn't. The one that should scare you, guys that don't have the core functional strength. You know why? Because that's not something you could coach up. That's on the player and his work ethic to get his ass in the gym and get better. We just went through Mike Gesicki. How did that work out when you put on the player? The second is someone who needs technique help. If they have the functional strength, right? If they have the functional strength, if they show they're continuously willing, all you need to do is then clean up. What is it? Hand placement. Normally it's hands. Usually it's hands. That's what it comes down to, hands, right? Normally that's what it is. That's stuff that can get coached up. So when you got guys who've got the functional strength, when you got guys who got the willingness, you don't sit there and say, oh, he's a bad blocker, he's Mike Gesicki. Listen, Dalton Kincaid is Michael Gesicki, all right? But he's a way better catcher than Mike Gesicki. But he's far closer to Mike Gesicki than Sam Laporta is. People need to get that through their thick skulls. I'm sitting here watching people continuously tell on themselves by labeling just everyone, everyone's getting blanketed under Mike Gesicki when technique is different than functional strength. And people need to get that through their head, all right? Kincaid, I love Kincaid, but he's a receiver. That man is not a tight end. I don't care what anyone's trying to tell me right now. All right, that guy's a receiver. Now I listed him as a tight end, but he's a receiver. He's a big slot. That's what he is. He's a guy who can play the boundary too. He's a tight end, but you know what's happening when Dalton Kincaid trots on the field. With Sam Laporta, if he was such a bad blocker, because I know you've watched him, Neal, if he was such a bad blocker, why was Iowa using him in line?
Right. And you got to block in that offense.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't get it, bro. I don't get it, dog. I think too often we take a popular narrative like Gesicki can't block and try to. We get into overanalyzing, bro. That's what happens in this stage. When you're 2 weeks away from the draft, you got a lot of these analysts have been doing it all year. They're now in the overanalyzation page, and people are buying into it, bro. You see it all the time. You see prospects drop because of it.
Right. You know, for me, like my problem with Mike Gesicki wasn't that he couldn't block. My problem with him is that in year 5 on the franchise tag, he didn't get any better at blocking. You know what I mean? He didn't improve at all. Actually, he might have regressed.
And you know it was on the player.
Right. And 2 regimes said, hey, we can't put you in the offense because you're a danger to our team.
And how many gurus at that position did we just have in this regime? We were saying on this, I was saying, and we were saying on this podcast preseason, if this regime ain't going to fix him, no one going to fix him when you got guys like John Embry and Frank Smith and Mike McDaniel. Look at the resume with tight ends, bro.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, like that's where it is. I mean, look, Sam Laporta, he's ready to be an NFL tight end. He's ready to be.
Sky's the limit in this offense with that guy too.
Well, he's a perfect fit. Like that's where it's like I said this last week. You have your big board, and that's not team specific.
Mayer too, Michael Mayer too. People sleep on Mayer. I don't know. That's another guy, bro. Why are people overanalyzing Michael Mayer, bro?
Yeah, they do it every year to players.
Sure, he doesn't get the breakaway home run speed, but the guy does everything so clean. He's like Tim Duncan, bro. He's boring because he's so good at everything. He's like Peter Skoronski's the same way, right? He's like Tim Duncan. He's so boring. He doesn't flash because he does everything so technically sound, Neal.
Well, he's my number 1 tight end, and actually by a good margin. Michael Mayer is a stud. You know, when you get really good and you peak early, a lot of times people forget about you because they're trying to replace you. Like, Mike Mayer is good. Like Michael Mayer is a really good football player. Let Darnell Washington and Dalton Kincaid get pushed above him. Because like when we were talking about this last week, you have a conviction about a player, right?
I have Darnell as tight end 1, Neal, and that's because I think his ceiling is freaking astronomical, bro. And in fairness to him, right? Because you watched the film too, so I can talk to you like you watched the film. You saw they didn't really give him opportunities till this year, but when they gave him opportunities this year, boy, was he exciting when the ball was in his hands, Neal. Like
they have a tight end there, Bowers,
who's a beast.
He's probably the best tight end draft prospect that's come out. I don't even know since when because he's that good.
Yeah,
like,
he's
everyone's talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. and rightfully so at wide receiver.
Yeah, Bowers right there,
big
though.
Quarterbacks.
Yeah,
Bowers is a blue chip player. They also had on their team Eric Gilbert, who was a number 1 recruit in the country, who came from LSU as a transfer. And then they also had another tight end, and whose name escapes me, who was the number 1 tight end. I mean, they were so loaded at tight end. They had 4 first-round talent type of players at the position. Darnell's a beast, But if Michael Mayer's there at pick 40 and you're the Miami Dolphins, that's a home run. That's what you get a guy and you chase him. You move
Can I be
up.
honest with you, bro? I think Mayer, Washington, and Laporte are all home runs, even if you move up to 40 for them, bro. I think like either one of those guys is going to thrive in their own way in this offense. Washington's going to need probably a little bit more time, but his ceiling is high. Like if you look at it, for me, the 3 highest ceilings at that position are Zach Kuntz, Sam Laporta, and Darnell Washington. Like Michael Mayer, like it's like Skoronski. It's like, you pretty much know what you're going to get at the next level. They're pretty much like Andrew Thomas, just as long as once they get their feet under them when Andrew Thomas was coming out, once you get the feet on them, they're very high floor, safe pick players. That's what they come off as. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Mayer reminded me a little bit of Todd Heap for the Baltimore Ravens when I saw maybe he wasn't as athletic as Heap because Heap was a very athletic pass catcher, right? But Mayer has a little bit of him to him. And then Laporta, to me, I've said this, he reminds me of Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
You
really mixed him. Mark Andrews, and you said Mark Andrews and someone else.
God, I'm drawing a blank.
Because I tried to
Owen Daniels.
Yeah. Because I tried to give your comparison to someone this weekend, and I was blanking on who the second one you compared them with.
And I'm talking about Owen Daniels when he was the 4-time Pro Bowler in Houston. Owen Daniels, not when he was washed up in Baltimore. But yeah, I mean, look, those are the players that I'm obviously paying attention to tight end, but like we all know, and there's the elephant in the room, and we're going to be talking about offensive line, but there's some offensive linemen that could fall. And there's 2 names in particular that I have my on, and I think we all agree that the offensive line is where we need to improve. I'm not confident the Dolphins agree with us. I'm just not confident.
Well, let's start everything off because Barry Jackson dropped a 6-pack and it has a lot of nuggets in here that we're going to go over. On top of that, we're also going to go over Xavien Howard and him in this offense. There was a hypothetical trade package Bleacher Report put out that people were talking about today regarding a star running back. We'll talk about that. On top of that, I don't know if you saw it, but that Sports Center report where they talked with Scott Peters discussing the jiu-jitsu training. It's a really in-depth report that I think it's worth us showing everyone and us discussing. We'll go over that. I don't know if you heard, but Daniel Jeremiah said we're the team he's most worried about that doesn't have a first-round pick. I'll play that segment and we'll get Neal's reaction and thoughts to that. And also Brian Baldinger, I know you saw this, was bigging up what Jaelan Phillips is going to be this year. And I picked me.
Defensive Player of the Year.
And what have I said, bro? I said last year he's going to enter the top 10. And this year, I said last offseason that this year he was going to enter that top 3. And, bro, when I hear Baldy start backing me, I get tingles. So we're going to cover all this stuff. We got a jam-packed show for you guys. Let's start off with Barry Jackson. Now, we're going to jump in and out of this article. We're going to have it on the screen for things we talk about, pull it down, talk about it, and then pull it back up. So just be prepared for that kind of stuff, guys. All right. So let's get into it. So Dolphins preparing for undrafted rookie market and the kicker Wilkins Tua questions. 6-pack of Miami Dolphins, things we're hearing on a Thursday. With only 4 picks in April's, you got to watch this. Let's start off with the offensive line here. Watch this, Neal. With only 4 picks in April's NFL draft, the Dolphins are trying to get a leg up on the undrafted rookie market, an area where they found several helpful players in recent years. Neal, the Dolphins have conveyed to at least a couple of offensive linemen that if they go undrafted, the team will be calling them and they have a specific vision for them. One left guard, Neal, who's expected to go undrafted, was given the team's exact vision, which included being given the chance to compete for a starting job.
Anthony Bradford.
Who cares? Everyone knows he's going to be a UDFA, and they're saying you're going to have a chance to start. What if they draft the guy early? It's over. Okay, so let's keep going here. Because teams are not permitted to discuss financial terms with potential undrafted rookies at this point, the best way of getting an early edge with them is expressing interest, discussing their chance of making the team, and having an assistant coach cultivate a relationship with them. Dolphins cornerback Kader Kohou, a rookie hit last season, said Miami's chances of landing him were helped by the fact that then defensive coordinator Josh Boyer took time to reach out to him multiple times before the draft. Ultimately, many undrafted rookies go to a team offering the most guaranteed money, and the Dolphins always make very competitive offers for the players they target. The Dolphins have signed several UDFAs who have started as rookies. Obviously, Nick Needham, Preston Williams, Kader Kohou. So let's start off with this, Neal. This tells me that commitment they've been telling us they got to Eichenberg and Jackson. If you're out here telling guys who are known to the league they're going to be UDFAs that, yeah, we'll give you a chance to start, what are you saying to guys with second? Perfect example. What are you saying to a guy like Steve Avila who could be there at 51, Neal?
You should make him the pick. But
what are you saying to him? You're saying, yeah, bro, if we pick you, you're starting. That's what you're if I'm telling you UDFA, yeah, we're going to have you compete. If I'm telling you at 51, I'm telling you you're starting, Neal. So I ask you, my friend, are they as committed as the message they've been conveying to the public, to Jackson Eichenberg, with that message they're sending to UDFAs?
I think we'll see for sure in 2 weeks, right? Because there's a lot of posturing right now, but I hope that means that they aggressively pursue it in round 2. I would hate the notion that we're getting undrafted free agents and having them challenge for starters.
So
Wash, rinse, repeat. We've done that way too often.
Still waiting for my boy Kellen Dyche to come through.
Well, I see, because here's what I believe. I believe left guard is actually a bigger need than right tackle, believe it or not, because I actually think
after the draft.
I've seen very few, but I have seen instances of good football play from Austin Jackson. I've never seen Liam Eichenberg play well.
So it's not the names that are still on the market waiting around for after the draft that kind of make you, like Brandon Shell still around, Cam Fleming still around?
Yeah, I think those guys are good depth guys at right tackle. But I think that if you go at left guard, you go in round 2, you name the guy that you should get. That's the guy you should get.
Avila, yeah.
That should be your pick. I mean, why not? Or you should take John Michael Schmitz and kick Connor Williams left guard.
I like what you're thinking right there, buddy.
One of those 2 moves has got to be the move. And look, it's boring. It's not sexy.
It is to me.
Yeah, we need another high quality offensive lineman on this offensive line.
I agree.
We need it so bad.
And just because I know you're grading, because I have a similar grade to John Mike. He's like right under Creed Humphrey and Linderbaum for me. Like he's right there, and you've missed out on these last. Like he's not on their level. He's right under them for me. You've missed out on the last 2 guys, and they've both been out of this, like hits out of this park. Maybe that's the move. No, like
yes. I mean, you get one of those 2 guys, man, and you've completely your offensive interior. Just think about this, right?
I love Avila too,
and whoever the other guy is. How the improvement that you have. First of all, Liam Eichenberg had an injury, which was a setback. But like when the Dolphins were trying to sell this false bag of hope that Liam was getting better, he came back, and then Tua was tiptoeing on him when he was on his ass right in front of Tua. Liam Eichenberg has done nothing. He has no athleticism. He's, I'm surprised by how bad he is.
He's not the technician they sold us he was.
Yeah, he's not. He's not the technician. So I think it's huge that you focus on offensive line. And I think the quality that we need is the higher draft pick. I think waiting the 3rd round is dangerous. Waiting to an undrafted free agent, I mean, that's just reckless at this point. If you think these linemen aren't it, go replace them. Go replace them now. Like one of my favorite free agents, Matt Filer, he got signed by the Buccaneers today.
Yeah, I
loved him as a left guard on this team. But I digress. Go get us a young guy in the draft. Let's make us more physical. If we could run the football, Reason, we'd be the best team in football. If we
I agree.
Consistently run the football, we're the best team in football.
All right. Here we go. For all of you, we got 400 of you in the room. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. Before we get into the next portion of this, listen, my whole take on it, I think Steve Avila or John Michael Schmitz in kicking Connor changes the whole dynamic of this offensive line. And I'll be honest with you, even with go get Brandon Shell and let Brandon Shell and Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg battle it out at right tackle, if Brandon Shell wins that, I still think we have a cusp top 10 line, a top 15 line in the NFL. I think a Villa, and you don't have one of these guys, let's be frank, that was spoiled under the past regime of bad offensive coaching we had. You know what I mean? Like you got a guy that you can mold in between either Connor Williams and Armstead, or next to Connor Williams and Armstead with Hunt on the other side of him. So, I just think it's kind of a no-brainer if a guy you like there. But I'll be honest with you too. Like, there are tackles that if they slip there, everyone knows I had Darnell as my OT1. That was no secret. That's been the worst kept secret of my draft takes. And now I'm seeing, I don't know if you're seeing those reports coming out that NFL scouts are hiring on Darnell Wright than anyone, that he's going to go higher than anyone thinks he's going to go. Like,
I haven't gone 14. I haven't gone 14 to New England.
Yeah, I think DeJuan Jones. Listen, I know DeJuan Jones. He's not. I know he's not the mover that Darnell is, but he's still very, very. DeJuan Jones is still a very good prospect, man. I like Anton Harrison's still a very good. Like, there's still going to be tackles around there that I think are really good, man. You know what I mean? So it's going to be very interesting because I think they're good. Not a lot of the big names people are trying to convince themselves are going to be there at 51, but I think there's going to be I think there's going to be legitimate tackle options. I think there's going to be legitimate offensive line options at 51. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, DeJuan Jones is a guy that I have, I think, is my 14th overall prospect.
Wow.
I have him as Orlando Brown Jr. vibes, and I want him to stay on the right side of the line. So I'm talking about Orlando Brown Jr. when he was the multi-time Pro Bowler for the Baltimore Ravens and a top 3 right tackle in football. So I love DeJuan Jones. And then, look, we know they like to dip into the Alabama well. And in round 3, Tyler Steen, the guy
baby.
that can make a lot of sense for them because they like that Alabama well. They pay attention there. Chris Greer does not hide the fact that, you got Raekwon, you got Waddle, you got Tua. I would say this. The offensive line market for where the Dolphins are going to be, there's going to be a big name that falls to them. And they should run to the podium and take one of those guys.
Like, why you need another pick while we're on this topic? A guy that I like, Neal, and his biggest knock is competition played, and he's going to fall because Nick Saldivari from Old Dominion. He can play right tackle, he can play guard, and he can play center. That's a guy we could use, bro.
Yeah, he's the perfect 4th round pick, right? Like, you get in the 4th round. Look, and we've heard the news that they're out trying to get more draft picks. Yeah, no shit. You got 4 picks in the draft. It's like, of course you want to. And I don't think they got a lot of players that are going to warrant picks. Yeah. Chris Greer's going to have to play some chess here. He's going to have to maneuver the board. But I would say this. I wouldn't want to trade back to get another pick if it costs us a player that's going to be a really good player. Like, I don't want us to move 10 back and get too cute, and then the guy that we want falls out of our lap.
I agree.
I don't even I'm just thinking bigger picture. You need to walk away with this draft with 1 upper echelon starter or 2 quality starters.
I agree.
If you have to package a second and third to get them, then you do it. If you have to package future picks, I don't care about future picks because I think the Dolphins will make more picks. Keep next year's 1, keep next year's 2. But if you have to trade a 4th next year and a 3rd this year to move up earlier in round 3, go get your guys. Get your players. Don't let the board fall to you. Be aggressive. Make your draft capital that you do have, make your resources your weapons to go make sure you get the guys you want on your draft boards. This is not the time. This Dolphins team is too good. Don't give me 2 guys that are going to sit on the bench for 2 years, and I got like a Hunter Long, and I have to sit there and convince myself this guy's going to come around. Go get me a guy that I have high on my draft board or high on your draft board that's going to come in here and immediately be what we want. You know what I mean? That's where I just think it's time to go make sure we get those guys because this team is ready.
I couldn't agree more, even if that means acquiring one of those said players from the Minnesota Vikings on draft night.
Right. Like
hint, Dalvin.
I care more about the players we get for the resources that we use. All about ROI than it is using our picks for draft. This window is 3 years right now for this current Dolphins roster. I told you this in text the other day. I think we still need one more big move to get us over that hump. A Dalvin Cook is that move. Drafting a player that has no business being at 51 that we make available by trading up or just falls in our lap, Jahmyr Gibbs comes to mind. One of the tight ends that we've mentioned. That is how this football team exceeds the expectations that we have, which are lofty going into this season.
Yeah.
If they add one more playmaker to this offense, I think that this team will be special.
Did you see the Vikings general manager wouldn't commit to Dalvin Cook today?
Hey, I think he's gone, man. I think they're going to move him. I think he's going to get traded draft weekend.
I think he's going to be a Dolphin. I think that is going to be our big addition on draft weekend is going to be Dalvin Cook. I think they're going to give like one of our picks this year. It won't be the second. I think they're going to give the third and a pick next year based on playing time and unstructured basically on some kind of parameters. But I think they're going to draft in the second round, and I don't think they're going to draft at 84 because I think that's going to be Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And I said that's what we ended with last week is I really believe that they have their eye on a player. And under this regime with Chris Grier, when Chris Grier's been in full control, not with Brian Flores looking over his shoulder, Chris Grier always gets his man. To quote the old Mountie from WWF, right? Like,
and Troy Nuke's right. Cedric and a third for Cook because they lost Thielen, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that would be great because then you free $6 million in cap space. But here it could be even something where we trade next year's number 2 for Dalvin Cook and a third rounder, right? Like it could be something like that. So we could trade next year's number 2, get Dalvin Cook and a third rounder in this year's draft. You know what I mean? That could be a creative way to use future picks to get both. So I think, get your popcorn ready on draft weekend. It's not going to happen on night 1, but watch night 2, watch the day leading up on that Friday on night 2. Because Reason, I'm with you, man. We've been saying this for weeks. The Dolphins were this close to making Dalvin Cook a Dolphin. It almost happened. And it
looks like it hasn't gotten better in Minnesota between him and it looks like they're still out on him,
This offense, man.
I don't get people's listen. I like Derrick Henry. Well, what's the fascination with dude? He's too north-south for what we want to do, and he's got a lot more tread used up on those tires. And the guy wants to be paid. Like I've heard from reliable source that Dalvin is willing to play ball with us. Because this is a home. This is a reunion, right? This is a homecoming for him.
Well, Derrick Henry is going to cost more resources in terms of draft picks, right? And more money. Like someone just said, you want to.
We'll get into it. Yeah, we'll get into.
You want a young running back? Dalvin Cook's 27 years old.
Yeah,
it's not like he's not getting SSI checks in the mail yet.
And the thing is, he's proven he's not a crapshoot coming out of the NFL draft.
Yeah, and like honestly, you know what? When the player plays their college ball in an area and they want to be there, they come with a swag. That's why I think Jalen Ramsey to me is going to be another guy that's probably because of his position, it's hard for him to win Defensive Player of the Year. But I think Jalen Ramsey is going to have the best year he's had in years because when you come back to your place that you want to be at and you play, you come with some swag. This Dolphins defense, did you see the thing? That we're going to talk about that Baldinger thing, but he was talking about that Dolphins defense, man. And I couldn't get out of my chair for 2 minutes, right? Because, you get excited when you hear about the players they have, the Vic Fangio scheme. But, man, this team is, there's a reason all these people in this chat are real fired up because we are absolutely steals. The last thing I will say, because someone brings up a good point on the offensive line, a guy who might go undrafted, and if not, you should use one of your 6th or 7th round picks, is a guy who's going to fall because of injuries, is Andrew Voorhees. That's a top 50 player in this draft.
Yeah. But that's 2-3 years down the line. So
yeah, but you know what? Yeah. Those 6 and 7 picks aren't going to help this team anyway this year. So
let's keep it rolling because we got a lot of stuff to go over here. We literally just have done one topic. So let's keep it rolling here because there's a lot to pick through this article by itself alone. So all right. Back to it because it mentions Jason Sanders. The Dolphins have conveyed to at least one college kicker they're considering bringing in another kicker to OTAs and training camp. Jason Sanders does remain the front runner for the job after hitting all 3 of the field goals in the Jets finale. and then nailing all 3 of his field goals in the Buffalo playoff game. Sanders slumped midway through last season, including 2 missed extra points November 13th against Cleveland. Keep in mind that 2.5 of Sanders' $3.4 million salary is already guaranteed. He has a $3.8 million cap hit for 2023, and if he's cut, the cap would be $3.7 million if cut. So we'd save money, right? All right. Now, they go and do some draft because they're having their local day. So here's some more names that they've released that will be coming down. Howard wide receiver Antoine Murray, former Miramar High standout, led the Middle Eastern Atlantic Conference with 40 receptions last season and finished with 615 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. Holy Cross cornerback John Smith. Mississippi State defensive end Randy Charlton. Richmond receiver Leroy Henley. So those are names that are added to the list of local players that will be coming for the audition. Now, let's get into it here. One of the titles on this show and this thumbnail, all right? A Dolphins source said that while outsiders might make light of Tua Tagovailoa doing jiu-jitsu to help him learn how to fall, the team genuinely believes this could help him avoid concussions. The source said that after the Christmas concussion against the Green Bay Packers, Tagovailoa was diligent in gathering medical information and medical input on his long-term health and was open-minded about doing whatever doctors advised. Once he was assured it was safe for him to continue playing, Tagovailoa decided to do so. But if they had advised him to stop playing, Tua Tagovailoa would have considered retiring. So people are going to take and run with it that, oh my God, he almost retired, he almost considered. But the key points I take out of that, Neal, is he really did his due diligence of gathering as much medical information as he could possible. And that's what we knew. He was doing that when he gained multiple doctors outside of Miami Gardens for, testing and their medical opinion and such and so forth. So if anything, I think people should take this away as even more of an assurance of how ready Tua Tagovailoa will be for next season. And that this kid is not one hit away like some idiots who don't do their research might try and assume or say about him, Neal.
Wait, so you're telling me that Tua Tagovailoa is a smart guy that's listening to what doctors are telling him when he just had a kid and he's a married guy who's got a family and his father and his mother and his brothers are important to him? And
I'm also telling you that it looks like the doctors didn't tell him to consider retirement, because if they would have, he would have considered it.
Yeah, I'm almost to a point, man, where the disrespect for Tua Tagovailoa, I'm gonna get back to old Neal Driscoll and start clapping back at some of it, because it's just ridiculous. Of course Tua's gonna do his due diligence, and part of me believes that his wife probably is okay if he decided to retire, because my wife wouldn't want me to do that. And I think everyone who's a Dolphins fan knows that if Tua gets another serious concussion, of course we're all going to be concerned, not just about his football future, but about Tua Tagovailoa, the man, just as much as the football player, right? This is his job. This is how he pays his family. But that doesn't mean, he's already made and acquired generational wealth. And something tells me that once Tua does want to stop playing football, that guy looks like he'll be on TV in a second. Right? Yeah. He's a well-spoken, smart individual. So, it's unbelievable. But you have quarterbacks that are holding out without agents, and then then the next Saturday night going to parties and bars, while all you see about Tua Tagovailoa is him putting work in every week, putting the work in. I think the good news is that the doctors are obviously saying, Tua, you're cleared. I think it's great because that you're seeing that Tua is a smart, intelligent man off the football field as well as on the field. I would expect nothing less from the guy than to do that. On the Jason Sanders talk, he'll probably be back.
He's going to be back.
I'm over him. This will be his last year because they could save almost $4 million.
Yeah.
I'm over him. I'm over him. I think he did an all right job at the end of the season. If there's an undrafted guy, I differ. A lot of people have Jake Moody as the best kicker in this draft. I have a guy from my alma mater, Chad Ryland from Maryland. I think he's going to be a better pro than anyone in this draft when it comes to kicking. And then on the Tua Jiu-Jitsu, we talked about this. Awesome. Good for him.
We're gonna talk about jiu-jitsu in a little bit more in depth when we play that video here in a sec.
Right. Good Tagovailoa for taking his job serious and taking all avenues to make sure that he's healthy enough to play at a high level. And then when he got the green light, that dude's done nothing but put in work. He's finding alternative methods to handle himself, to prepare himself. And do you see how dedicated this guy is to the Miami Dolphins?
Oh, I love it.
Like, that needs to be returned by this fan base. We have a kid that is a special man on and off this football field, and we're lucky to have him. We could have Kirk Cousins, who the Vikings secretly want to replace, but they're not in draft capital to do. We could have Lamar Jackson, who looks like an absolute moron this offseason by how he's handled himself. But we have a guy that wants to be here, who wants to be great here, and has done nothing. And he's had more against him than any quarterback in football in this league. Lamar Jackson's sad story, he's had a team that's given the best offensive line in football. They might have not had all-world receivers, but they have an all-world historic number one in the history of football running game. Tua had no running game. He's got a piss-poor offensive line. They finally got him weapons. They gave him horrible coaches that didn't believe in him. And this dude's still here for more. We should be grateful to have that guy.
David Figley says we could have had Trey Lance. I'll add one more to that. Trey Lance and his pushback hairline, or Tua or his stash. I'm taking Tua all day.
Yeah, I like the man thing. That was funny.
That was funny. And then finally, remember last week when we did our show, the title of the show was "Are Christian Wilkins and the Miami Dolphins far apart on money?" And you reported that you had a source telling you that they were far apart on money, but we also had Alf saying that, they're going to get it done. And, and basically this report basically says that in a nutshell, but we had it here a week ago on Fin2T. Check this one out. Christian Wilkins representatives and the Dolphins have exchanged numbers in negotiations on a contract extension. According to a source, there was a gap as of last week, but there remains optimism that a deal will get done at some point. Any extension could lower his $10.7 million 2023 cap hit. So there you go. They are apart on money, like we did, in fact, report a week ago. I mean, your thoughts, Neal, because there is obviously still optimism. So listen, they're not $1 million apart because that would be done by now, but they're not, obviously there isn't, a huge, there's obviously a workable gap, right? So there's a gap, which still means they're apart, but there's obviously a workable gap, right?
Yeah, the old saying, right? The early bird gets the worm. We saw the Commanders and we saw the Titans take care of their defensive tackles, get them locked up. Someone in the chat saying 10 to 12 years max. There's no way in hell it's going to be that low. Christian Wilkins is going to cost $18 to $20 million. That's why there's a big gap in the money. And I don't think it's the money. I think it's more the structure of how the deal looks. But I think it's something that's going to get done. The one thing that you have to take into account for is, right, you see Jeffrey Simmons' contract. I'll say this might not be popular. Jeffrey Simmons is a better football player than Christian Wilkins. And that's not disrespecting Christian. I think Jeffrey Simmons is probably a top 3 defensive tackle in football, and Christian Wilkins is probably in the 5 to 7 range. So it's not like he's astronomical better. But, you also got to think about this, right? The no state tax in Miami thing, it plays in favor when you're structuring a long-term deal because you can account for the lack of state taxes in that. So we don't have to match dollar for dollar the deal Jeffrey Simmons got. I think the good news and what I interpret this is, there's some work that needs to be done, but they both want to make it happen. They're at the table. They're talking. They're trying to find their way. Christian wants to be here. The Dolphins want him. We're going to make this. And that's another move. Like, honestly, once you start seeing things like we just saw, Reason, next 5 to 7 business days, something will get done. That's what I think. I think, you start putting these feelers out. This is just negotiation 101 for anyone who's in any type of sales or negotiation road. You start far apart. That's how you start, because you don't want to put your cards on the table. You don't want to cost yourself, profit, revenue.
Yeah.
And then you work your way towards a mutual point, and it doesn't happen overnight in all negotiations. But when negotiations go bad, hint, hint, Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, the sides don't sit at the same table anymore. They don't talk. They sign instead. One side goes and overpays Odell Beckham Jr. to try to lure you back in, right? The Dolphins are at the table talking with Wilkins. I think they'll get it done. I'd be shocked if they don't. But you and I have both said this. I would not be completely surprised that if it comes to the draft and there is not progress, the Dolphins see maybe what they could get back. I'm not saying they're going to trade them, but I think that Chris Grier has to do his due diligence because this isn't about the name on the back of the jersey. This is about the logo on that helmet. And there's only so much money to go around. And I think Wilkins, if he gets to 18 to 20, he deserves that. If the money gets over 20 million, Reason, then I get nervous.
Knight asks, do you think North Dakota State University tackle Cody Mott will be there at 51? Yeah, he will be.
I will. I don't like him as much. I like him.
Yeah, he's okay.
I'm not as high as anyone because I don't see what his true position is. I think he's probably a better guard than tackle.
I kicked him in the guard. Yeah, I kicked him, Richard Gorich, Braden Daniels, and Graham Barton from Duke into guard.
Yeah. I think that definitely, he's a guy that will probably go at the end of round 2. I would just say that he's not my favorite flavor.
Yeah, Steve Avila is going to be on the board probably at 51. He's way better interior option, I think. So
I even like Luke Weipler out of Ohio State a little bit better. Actually.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into this because this was going around the internet, Dolphins Twitter today. I had this noted since yesterday, and I'm just gonna, before we even put it up there, this is way too much to give up. So Bleacher Report did hypothetical superstar trade packages that you could shake up the 2023 season. They said Miami finally lands a star running back. Tennessee receives a 2023 second round pick, the 6th round pick, and a 3rd round pick next year for Derrick Henry. They said the Miami Dolphins haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since J.J. in 2016. After giving plenty of chances to a variety of running backs over the last 6 years, it may be time for them to make a move that would almost guarantee steady production from the backfield. Derrick Henry has been the league's most consistent running back over the last 5 years, put together 4,000-plus yard seasons in that span and nearly topped that mark in the 5th despite missing 9 games that year. The 29-year-old has highly impressive career numbers of 8,335 yards, 78 touchdowns on 1,715 carries. He's recently become a bigger factor in the passing game as well, posting career highs of 33 catches for 398 yards last year. He's had a high workload since entering the league as a 2nd-round pick in 2016. Though they say here he appears to have plenty left in the tank as he gears up for year 8. While the Titans' offensive identity revolves around Henry's rushing style, it might be time for them to move on from him and to begin to retool. Henry would be the 2nd-star running back dealt in the last calendar year as the Panthers dealt Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers for a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick and a 5th in the following year. While the Titans might not fetch an equivalent haul for Henry, they should at least get a pair of middle-round selections. If the Titans did send Henry to the Dolphins, they might have to wait a year to cash in on one of those chips. Miami is a tad pick starved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, I ain't giving up a 2nd this year, a 3rd next year, and a 6th this year.
We don't even have a 3rd rounder next year. So Derrick Henry's a beast, man. I think he's was one of the most dominant football players over the last 5 years. The problem is you don't make a move doing considering what someone's done in the rear view. You think of what they're going to do in the future. I don't think Derrick Henry has many more of those years left. He's 2 years older than a Dalvin Cook. He's going to be more expensive from a contract. He's going to be more expensive from a pick. I think it's fun and it makes sense because you know what that article tells me? Read between the lines. People think the Dolphins are contenders. That's why the Dolphins
we're heavy in the running back market right now.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the things that I would take away from it. I doubt very much so that we trade for Derrick Henry. Now, I'll say this. I'm not going to be mad if we trade for Derrick Henry. I will hate losing a 2nd-round pick, but obviously he's better than anything we have. I just think that if you're in that market, go get Dalvin Cook for way cheaper. That's just add 2 years less tread. But look, Derrick Henry's a good player. It makes sense. I mean, you add him to your team, and the Dolphins are at least the most fun team in Madden next year.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, let's stick to the draft before we get to Tua and his jiu-jitsu. I want to show you what Daniel Jeremiah said, because they were talking about.
Don't get me mad at him. I like Daniel.
They were talking about, teams without a first-round pick. Now, they said without a first-round pick, Daniel Jeremiah expected the 49ers to be the most improved team without a first-round pick. Then he was asked about
I agree with that. The reason I agree with that, you know why? Because they're loaded with
yeah.
So
Yeah. But, so here's what he said about the Dolphins.
Teams that don't have the first rounder that you're concerned about. Who stands out the most?
Well, it's the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
MJ's hopefully.
I'm feeling the eyeballs going
that heat coming my way. But to me, it's really going to be the same answer for them. Everybody's going to have the same answer because with Tua, we just don't know.
So do you think that's fair to be concerned on them not having? How do you put that on Tua?
It has nothing to do with the draft.
Exactly. That's why I had to show that. That was just another thing of the media spinning the narrative still out there. You're asked about the draft, and somehow he sounded like an idiot in this community. Listen, I like Daniel Jeremiah too, but he sounded like one of the idiots in this community that, what color is the sky today? Well, Tua, I don't know if he's going to be able to make it through the season. Somehow these people can make the color of the sky about Tua Tagovailoa and his health, bro.
But it's just ironic because when he did the draft breakdown in 2020, he was all over Tua. It's ironic, obviously, that he's going this route. But the reality of it is like that article and everything they just talked about had nothing to do with the draft picks. I actually don't even think the Dolphins necessarily would be the bad answer there, because it does scare me that they only have 4 picks and that only one. I view them honestly. I hate
the answer should have been, Neal, they've only got 4 picks. You have to hit on those first 2, or else the draft is going to be a wash. That's the answer, bro, of why you're so concerned, because you're up against the wall and now you don't have any wiggle room to not hit.
Yeah, I'm with you. It doesn't make sense. There's no context to it. You could even argue, you could also say the Rams, because the Rams lost half their roster this offseason. If there's any questions about quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford's coming back from a season that was before he got hurt, wasn't going the way he wanted.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of rumors that he wants to retire, but he wants to collect that check. And their best player, maybe in their franchise history, is at UFC hugging Mike McDaniel instead of
love it.
UDFA, right?
Love
so
it.
At the end of the day, I don't know if that's the right answer, but who are the Dolphins going to draft in this draft? That's an upgrade to Tua Tagovailoa. The answer is nobody.
No one.
But Daniel Jeremiah is, he picks his favorites. Reason like he came from the Ravens organization. So if the Ravens sign Odell Beckham, who's not even a top 50 receiver in football, for 15
discussion,
he's like, oh, what a good job! They finally added a weapon. He doesn't like the Dolphins. He says he likes Jalen Ramsey. Go back and listen to what he said when they signed him. He wasn't very complimentary.
Okay. So we show them to show them this then. Okay. We show them that to show, because they made it about Tua's health and pushing that narrative, Neal. So let's show everyone this, and let's show people a real take on the health and the jiu-jitsu for everyone to watch.
Far too often last season, this is what the world saw when Tua Tagovailoa was playing.
Jimmy, he doesn't know where he is.
No,
he got
doesn't.
Staggered around.
Tua's down.
He got body slammed. He got thrown down, and they're coming out right now.
Multiple times last year, the Miami Dolphins quarterback violently hit his head on the turf as he was being brought down by opposing defenders. On at least 2 occasions, the blows resulted in stints under the NFL's concussion protocol. Now, when the Dolphins are spending this offseason working on any and everything that will help him better protect his head.
Offseason training's been good. Been working on strength in many areas, and been chipping away at things that I felt like I needed to work on to get to where I feel like I can get to in the later parts of the season.
I'm really encouraged about the work that he's doing for preventative injuries with his core and his neck training. His jiu-jitsu stuff has been outstanding.
Yes, that's right, jiu-jitsu training, a 16th century martial art whose techniques others have brought to the NFL before, like Cleveland Browns assistant offensive line coach Scott Peters, who believes the disciplines can keep those on the gridiron safe.
Anytime a person is taken down, one of the first things that they do in judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling is teach the participant how to land effectively. So there are some things you can take away and glean from that.
Peters was an NFL offensive lineman for 7 seasons. Near the end of his career, he started training in jiu-jitsu, eventually becoming a 2-time world champion in jiu-jitsu. Peters then founded Tip of the Spear, a martial arts-based training program he and other former NFL players he works with believe eliminates head contact in football. The first football team they worked with was at the University of Washington in 2012.
Check this, Neal.
I got a call from their trainer who told me that for the first time ever in their school's history, they had 0 concussions and 0 stingers for their players on the offensive line. So I thought, wow, that's unique. Given the concerns around head impacts, this is certainly something to pursue. And that was what really kind of helped inspire my motivation to start Tip of the Spear.
Tip of the Spear says it's worked with 12 NFL teams, more than 20 in college, and hundreds of high school and youth league programs across the country. As for Tua, the Dolphins are hoping the techniques he's learning produce similar results. I'm Coley Harvey, ESPN.
Pretty good stuff there, eh? Like actually showing you got someone who's actually, living proof of the results of the jiu-jitsu training in Scott Peters. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And, I thought it was also interesting, Neal, his Tip of the Spear program. You heard the results he got at the University of Washington. I mean, listen, last year Tua cleaned up the ticky-tacky injuries. Now get the head right, get the falling right. And people are still blown away by a kid who doesn't know how to. Well, listen, when in high school, when you're best athlete on the field and never touch, you don't worry about falling. When you go to Alabama and you got that offensive line, you're not sitting there worried about falling. You're worried about making the play, which is how he got hurt. Now that he's actually taking it serious and you see the precautions he's taking, Neal, I'm very confident that we're not going to be dealing with head issues. This isn't going to turn into a Trent Green situation. This is going to be something we look back on that to learn from, evolve from, and grew from. Because, Neal, every time he's taken the offseason serious, whether it's been getting right from the hip injury, whether it was the year after last year when he could finally start focusing on his body and developing, every time he's attacked something in his game or in his body, he's improved and gotten better, Neal. So I'm not worried in the slightest about Tua. I think he's going to be just fine. And honestly, this should give people more foundational hope for what he's doing and how he's building himself this offseason, Neal.
I think Tua's going to be on the verge of having a season that is better than he had last season, where for 75% of the year, he was a MVP candidate. I think you're going to see a big, jump in his game. I think it's great that they're trying things to make him, obviously avoid these concussions, because it goes back to everything I've kind of said. You can't like Mike McDaniel and be anti-Tua, because there ain't anybody who's a bigger fan than Tua Tagovailoa than Mike McDaniel. Like, I like to put this in perspective, right? The Dolphins could have Lamar Jackson as their starting quarterback right now. That's where Lamar wanted to go. They could have had Tom Brady. They have Tua Tagovailoa because they chose him for this offense. It goes to what I said earlier. Like, how can we be divided on a guy that is our quarterback? Everyone's got things to work on. Some people need to improve their accuracy. Some people need to get rid of the ball faster, right? Some people have to improve their decision-making. Our quarterback needs to not fall and hit his head. Like, that's what we're working towards. There's very few perfect quarterbacks. For everybody who wants to tell me how great Joe Burrow is, and I agree, I think Burrow's the second best quarterback in this league. He sure isn't great when Super Bowls are on the line. You want to tell me how great Josh Allen is, and Josh Allen, to me, top 5 quarterback in football. He's sure ain't great in the crunch time when the big games in the playoffs, right? Like, you can't move the goalposts for your arguments. Every quarterback, pretty much not named Pat Mahomes, is working to get better at something, and Tua's is. I think it's a blessing that it's more of, how do I stay on the football field because I'm so good when I'm on it, versus when I'm on the football field, how do I get better? That's not to say there isn't things in his game that he has to improve on. But what I'm saying is Nick Hicks, very dedicated to making Tua the best player he can. They have a very tight-knit relationship. They're exploring these options because they all know that if this can get into the rearview mirror, this guy's going to be here for 10 years.
Yeah.
And he's going to be a guy like the best story in football that can be told this year, in my opinion, and I can take this Dolphins hat off, is Tua Tagovailoa changing the narrative and being that player that everybody thought he was coming out. Like, let's not make any mistakes about it. Like, some people jumped on the Joe Burrow train late, but for 3 years before, or 2 years before the 2020 NFL draft, Tua was the guy. There wasn't many people before the injuries that had Burrow or anybody in the same ballpark as Tua. So I think good for Tua. I hope this works, Reason, because, you know, again, we're not doctors, but we know how good this guy is if he's on the football field.
For sure.
And, you know, and Tua attacks this like he attacks everything with everything he has.
Yep.
You know, if he can stay concussion free, this guy's your franchise quarterback for the next decade.
Yeah. All right. And then finally here, Baldy.
Yeah, Baldy's
I'm gonna two-parter this with what Baldy. So this is what Baldy said in terms of what he says about Jaelan Phillips under Vic Fangio, and I'm gonna add something to it. So here's what he said.
If you follow Vic Fangio, Stephen, I know you have, throughout his career, I mean, in 2 stops now, he's led the league in takeaways. And I feel like this is a defense that can be built to take the ball away, to give extra at-bats to Tua and that fine-looking mustache of his, and to Mike McDaniel, let them go work. But I think Jaelan Phillips has a chance to pop this year. You saw it in the second half of the season last year. We haven't really seen much from Bradley Chubb, but Vic has worked with him before, and so I think that's going to be huge. And if you look at the secondary with Xavien, Ramsey, Javon, like, that could be the best secondary in football. And if you combine that with Rush and what they can do with what Vic likes to do, this has a chance to, like you said, to be a pretty special group on that side of the ball.
So I'm gonna have Kevin Dern on. Looks like I'm gonna have him on Saturday when I drop my. I'm gonna drop my big board for linebackers on Sunday, and have Kevin Dern on Saturday in the day. And we're going to be really diving into some of the stuff he just talked about Fangio's defense. But I wanted to bring that up because of not only what he said about Jaelan Phillips, but he mentioned the secondary, Neal. And you've seen Xavien Howard, you know, focusing, posted on Instagram, focusing on my health again, reinventing myself. We saw the spike in play he had when Byron was on the other side of the field. The spike in play with a Jalen Ramsey on the other side of the field, you know, it's no more traveling, so not a lot of strain on the groin anymore, et cetera, et cetera. Those little tic-tacky injuries he's been dealing with. Not only Jaelan Phillips, I expect, but do you expect Xavien Howard to get back to some of his form? Because I'm going to be honest with you, Neal, I expect Jaelan Phillips to enter that top 5 rusher conversation, but I also expect Xavien Howard to make it really hard on the Dolphins to move off of him after this year. And I expect him to play so well that they come back and say, listen, we played ball with you after we gave you that money. We gave you more money, which is unprecedented. Play ball with us here because we can win here in a window, and you and Jaelan can be something special in that window and go, hey, we could listen. What people don't realize, we might have the best wide receiver and corner duo in football right now. Neal.
Right. Yeah, look, Xavien Howard, I mean, he looks great. He looks great, man. He looks like he's been working. Even when he had a bad season, right?
Yeah.
In that playoff game when Josh Allen went deep to Stephon Diggs, X got a pick. There's still not a quarterback in football that has better ball skills than Xavien Howard. There really isn't. I mean, Trevon Diggs does a good job, but X is the best playmaker from the secondary in football still. He gets to go back to being a 1B than being the guy that has all the pressure. Vic Fangio is going to be wise how he uses them. You know, Josh Boyer couldn't adapt. He kept doing the same bad mistakes over and over again. I think X is going to have a huge jump this season. And then the other guy that Baldy mentioned, Bradley Chubb, I disagree with the fact that he didn't show much last year. I kind of think that's kind of crazy. Our defense as a whole became, one of the most pressure-friendly teams in the league when he came on. He had almost a strip. Well, he had a strip sack, but the Bills recovered it in the playoff game. I mean, I think Bradley Chubb's another guy. So I think there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to eat in this defense. None more than Jaelan Phillips. Jaelan Phillips is my pick I'm going to put money on Vegas that he wins Defensive Player of the Year. I think that's a move that could happen.
Love
God,
it.
I even heard an interview with him the other day, dude. It even sounds like Jason Taylor when he talks.
I know. It's crazy, eh?
He sounds like Jason Taylor.
And you know the fro's going to get eventually cut down, right? And you know he's going to be eventually he's going to get slicked out, and you know it's going to be Jason Taylor.
I agree with Baldy, and like I think Baldy's one of the best minds of football. He's
awesome.
Game, and he knows there's nobody that knows the trenches better than Brian Baldinger. So when he talks offensive linemen, pay attention. And he's a Robert Hunt fan. But like he's right. I mean, you have the talent on defense, but you also have the wizard that knows how to manipulate that talent. That's why this defense is going to be good. I think they're going to make the biggest leap of any unit in the entire NFL. So I think when I talk about it, the Dolphins defense is going to make a leap like their offense, which is why I've said on here that I think they are a legitimate team that contend for a AFC championship and beyond.
450 of you in the room. I'm going to be live on Sunday. I'm going to be back with my big board. The plan is on Saturday to go live with Kevin Dern and really dive into Vic Fangio's defense. If anything breaks, then tomorrow I'll be live. But Neal, before we wrap everything up, I want to give away a couple copies. I'm going to do that maybe next time. Let's get as many people as we can donating because it's a good cause. You released your draft guide.
Yep.
So people can send. They can Venmo $2 to you to Neal Driscoll, correct?
Yep.
And you will forward them the draft guide. So why don't you go over a little bit for it here and just tell people what the cause and where the $2 is going to?
Sure,
because,
man.
You know, you do put a lot of work into that, and you're actually, you know, giving it back to someone in your family that needs it.
Yeah, look, honestly, I didn't even want to monetize it, but my aunt, who is actually also my childhood next door neighbor, my mom and her sister are so close that she moved into the house directly next door to us, is battling breast cancer. Because of that, she had to retire from her job. She's in chemo and radiation. She has a GoFundMe going, and rather than me send out a link and have people do it, I know there's people out there that appreciate the content and the work that I put in. So I've put together, I think it's a 93-page draft guide that has my positional rankings. It has my big board, which is a top 500 big board. It has a full 7-round mock draft. I even have a 2024 top 50 big board for next year's draft. So $2, you send it, you Venmo me, and in the comment, you just tell me your email address. I'll forward you the PDF right from there. And make sure that you get it. And I really appreciate the support. Reason, I appreciate you throwing that out there. But yeah, absolutely. It's my views. I don't always have, I have players ranked on my big board based off of where I think they rank overall. Like you'll see some things that might be a little bit questionable when it comes to the Dolphins. Again, I think there's players that are better fits for the Dolphins than they rank on their big board. That's a cool thing to see. So I really appreciate it. Anyone that wants one, go ahead. I'm not one of those guys that's going to be in your face about it. Appreciate what anyone can do. And the good news is I've already sold, 250 copies so far.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I sent 200 so far. That money I'm going to send the other 300. So it's working out, which is really awesome to see, man. So love this community. Appreciate the support. Really, really do. It means a lot, guys.
Man, and you know what? We'll give some out coming up before the draft happens. Also, I wanted to shout out because I had a couple off-camera donations come through. I had 3 days ago, I had a $9.99 donation from Topher. And then 2 days ago, I had another $49.99 donation from Samuel. Appreciate you. And then I believe it was, let me just find the date here. And then just a few days ago, what is today? April 13th. So yesterday, I had a donation from Glenn, $32, and said, most accurate, honest review of Tua and the Miami Dolphins. Not clickbait, but has substance and credibility. Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate the donation. I appreciate you supporting the channel. And hey, any of y'all that want to support Neal and the cause, go check it out. It does good work. And man, hey, I hate that he has a draft party and he's not going to be able to be a part of draft night here because we would have brought you even more.
I'll pop on. I'll be popping on Reason. I'll jump in.
Especially night two, brother.
Yeah, I'll be jumping on, man. I love it. I love listening to the content, man. Like, look, I think a lot of times the community gets centered on the negative people that try to create a lot of noise. And I've tried to distance myself from that because I think there's so much great content. There's so many great people that want to be objective. Look, I'm the first to admit, trust me, there's a bit of homerism in everything I do. I've told you, outside of my family, I love this football team, man.
For sure.
This is I'm committed for life. Like I might be committed for being committed for life to this football team. But like, I think there's so much good in this community. There's so many good content creators. My advice, and it's something I'm trying to take my own advice. Don't click the bait. Don't jump into it. There's no reason to get into the wars that are out there. Like, this is a fun time to be a Dolphins fan. We've had the last decade to have the wars. We've had plenty of times to have the wars. Like, now let's enjoy this team. Like, because I don't know about you, Reese, but I literally wake up every Sunday thinking this team can beat anyone we play.
Agreed.
Any Sunday. And I used to have to wake up every morning and convince myself, like, hey, man, at least we might get a shot at Andrew Luck.
Chance.
Right? That's what so at least we've
Agreed.
as fans are starting to get our loyalty and our commitment to this team. We're starting to cash that in because, I mean, man, like we have to wait to a freaking football game till September, man. I don't know about you guys. Like, I bite my nails. Like, I love baseball. I love hockey. Like, I love my teams, but there's nothing in the world to me like waking up at football Sunday and knowing that your boys are coming on soon. I mean, from 12:50 to 1 o'clock, and 1 o'clock Eastern is when the games usually come on for me here. I'm literally a nervous wreck, man. I'm walking around my house. I can't sit still. Like, it's nuts, man. So I think it's time that we are, all united and get to enjoy this together. I'm going to be at a lot of Dolphin games. There's a lot of games on the East Coast. I think they play in Washington. They play in Baltimore. The wife and I are going to a game in Miami. The son and I are going to a game in Miami, and we're going to take one road game. I already know 5 games. And I'm going to do MetLife this year. So I know 6 games that I'll be at. So I look forward to getting there. And look, your boy still can put some back. And if you got a beer bong, I'll put them down too. So, and one of my favorite shots is Black Sambuca. I'm a rare breed. So, I look forward to interacting and seeing everyone, and Fins up and Reason 2 weeks, buddy.
Yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to be back on Sunday, definitely, for my linebacker big board in the day. Be on the lookout for that. And the tentative plan is Saturday in the day. Me and Kevin Dern from DolphinsTalk.com. He's been on the channel for the last couple of years. Friend of the show, friend of me. We're going to dive into the Vic Fangio defense and basically explain why you should expect the Dolphins to have a top 10 defense this year under Vic Fangio. So until then, smash that like button. Go get Neal's draft guide, and I will see all y'all in the next one. Fins up all day, every day. And Patreons, expect 3 takes to come out this weekend. See y'all on the next one. Fins up, everyone.